How do you envision a transitional government happening in Rwanda peacefully? Or is that possible?
Actually, number one, is it possible, given the nature of the regime that came to power through violence and maintains itself through violence, and being headed by somebody whose only logic is the logic of violence? Can such a peaceful transition take place? I think people should not underestimate the power of the people. Time and time again, we've had dictators of that nature who believe that they will be there forever and that they rely on coercion to make sure that nothing happens, only to be surprised that sometimes with more coercion you make people bolder and bolder. Now, I believe that Rwanda has never had a chance as ordinary citizens and various sectors of society to strongly work towards peaceful transformation, peaceful and democratic transformation. We've never done it in Rwanda. Rwanda is a place where the only logic until now has been the logic of war, the logic of the mighty who must be right. In economics, they call it the zero-sum game. In other words, the winner takes it all. And so this whole idea of constructing win-win arrangements, we tried it through the Russia peace agreement, but that was derailed, as we know. And so I think we should give peace a chance, and we should struggle, mobilize, and organize as much as possible on this peace platform. Mobilize all Rwandans, Hutus, Tutsis, to reject violence as a viable pathway to building peace of the future, and the rest will depend on how Kagame also plays to these gestures by the Rwandan people. But should he continue to resist the demands of the people, he will be the one who will actually throw the population of Rwanda into, hopefully not, into a violent and armed revolution against him. And this is really what we said in Rwanda briefing. This is what we said in our declaration. This is what we say in by the way, it's not 8 strategies, there are 13. Maybe I should send you the document that has all the 13 strategies. But all the things that RNC is trying to do is actually to prevent Rwanda sliding into that violent pathway. Yes, but we should give it a chance, because in Rwanda we've never done it. Right. And so it would be wrong to say, oh, it won't work before we try it. I think we should try it. We are trying it, and the response so far has been quite good. Yes. But the rest of Kagame's behavior, how Kagame's behavior impacts on the sentiments and the mood of the people, that is really his business. But I still believe that we as Rwandans can prevent another civil war, and we can prevent all the other negative and harmful things that happen alongside civil war. In Rwanda, it has been genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, all sorts of abuses that take place once there is a civil war. And we've lost too much, we've lost too many people to want yet another loss of people, simply on the basis of one man who has absolute desire to simply to control the country and control it in a violent manner. We don't see why people should pay more sacrifices on that kind of basis. So it is difficult, but I still think that we as Rwanda should give peace a chance. Absolutely.
Within the oppositional groups, and I'm not going to ask you to speak on anybody's behalf but the RNC, obviously, there seems to be a lot of focus on Kagame. And in one blog post recently that's written by somebody anonymous, I've tried to find the author and can't, but they said that he said that people should focus less on Kagame and more on constitutional reforms, military restructuring, how to address questions of justice. And specifically, they said a true opposition must distance themselves from the usual elite power plays that have characterized our politics for so long. I guess that goes back to the previous question, and you obviously know a lot more about Rwanda than I ever will. But I fear that Rwanda, because of its history, having a change in political restructuring, I mean, a major challenge is that this will happen peacefully, especially with Kagame's history and, well, in his present, really.
Yeah, but Jen, the same argument did prevail. First of all, let me address it because there are two questions. Number one, why do we talk about Kagame so much?
Mm-hmm.
And number two, coming back to the same question, that how would that change take place, knowing the nature of Kagame? First of all, precisely that's the point, because every dictator at some point amasses so much power and becomes so arrogant and begins to imagine that he is actually the country and that the country is him.
Mm-hmm.
That is the kind of state that we have for the likes of Kagame, the likes of Idi Amin, the likes of all dictators that have, that we know in history. At some point, they believe that they are actually the country,
mm-hmm.
and the country is them. That the state he is the state, and the state is him. How else, for somebody who has absolute power and who has absolutely no regard for institutions,
mm-hmm.
and who has and a country where there is no balance or checks and balances within a country?
Mm-hmm.
How else are you going to discuss that political situation? To somebody like you who has grown in a country, the United States,
mm-hmm.
you might read about it, but you may never actually fully grasp how much power somebody like Kagame has. You may never fully grasp it.
Mm-hmm.
Because truly, a man like Kagame wields powers that you can never even begin to imagine. Mm-hmm. And especially when it is even extrapolated to such an extent that he becomes somebody who can decide between life and death of citizens.
Mm-hmm.
That is how much absolute power there is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how else would people want us to discuss Rwanda's predicament today, Rwanda's situation today, mm-hmm. without talking about Kagame? Because everything in Rwanda begins and stops with Kagame. Mm-hmm. And so, I think people who make that kind of criticism probably may not fully understand how the situation, the system runs in Rwanda. Number two, for people who argue that let's talk about constitutionalism, all those things, by the way, if you read all the things that we talk about in these meetings that we attend, mm-hmm. if you read our 13 strategies, if you read our declaration, mm-hmm. of course we talk about constitutionalism, we talk about building new institutions, we
mm-hmm.
talk about building a culture that eradicates impunity. Mm-hmm. So nobody, I think we've come out forcefully and imagined the future state of Rwanda probably than even any other group. So there shouldn't be a criticism that we haven't thought about, that we are simply critical. In fact, for us, the first part is talking about what are the challenges that we face in Rwanda, and number two, what is the pathway towards a peaceful and democratic Rwanda in the future. Mm-hmm. So we've done that. Yes. But having said that, the reality is that cannot happen without a struggle.
Yeah.
Yes, we are in a struggle, mm-hmm. and the struggle is about it's a contentious matter. Mm-hmm. We contend with the powers that be in Rwanda, and Kagame fully understands this more than anybody else, I believe. And he understands that before until today, he always had a habit of intimidating Hutus who are in exile, who are in the opposition. Every time they brought up their heads, he would say you are genocidaire, you are revisionist, you're all sorts of you are terrorists, you're connected to FDLR. When we came up with Rwanda briefing, he thought he would intimidate us, and later, as you know, he tried us, and sentenced us to long-term prison sentence in absentia, even sending arrest warrants to all over the world, when the countries have simply ignored him. The work that we've been trying to do has amazingly also brought Hutu people out of hiding, and they're becoming more confident, simply because we've laid to rest this whole notion that because the Hutu comes up in opposition, then you brand him a genocidaire. You can see that it's becoming less and less frequent. And now, people who had kept quiet previously, now there is all of them are getting up and being more and more fearless and attending our meetings and going to demonstration. Something could not have happened and didn't happen in the previous years. And so that shows you that, number one, just to summarize, that we have to talk about Kagame, because Rwanda is run by an absolute and violent dictator, and there are no institutions, there are no checks and balances. So to talk about Rwanda is talk about Kagame. Number two, certainly we've talked about the future state, and that's what we've spent these last 12 months talking about, talking about the future state and how we are going to reach there. And number three, to say that it's happening because for the first time, Kagame's policy of intimidation, especially intimidating people in the opposition, especially the Hutu, that is coming to pass. And so I expect that in the coming 12 months and beyond, Kagame should expect actually more and more people rising up against his violent rule.
Within Rwanda or around the world?
Within Rwanda and around the world.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. A few months back, Paul Rusesabagina came out, I guess basically it was published that he was part of the RNC. Is he part of the RNC or is he not part of the RNC?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, he's part of the RNC, but I think you should direct that question to him too.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just wasn't sure. I'd seen an article on that, and
That he's not?
No, that he was. But I haven't seen much since, and so I thought... There was one that was published later saying that he was not, and so I just didn't know who to believe on that topic.
I think RNC considers Paul Rusesabagina as one of the founding members of the RNC.
Okay. So what do you see moving forward into year 2 for the RNC? What goals have you guys set, or what things are you going to be working towards in this next year?
Number one is to try and make inroads and intensify our mobilization and organization efforts into Rwanda, while at the same time continuing to mobilize Rwandans in diaspora, because certainly, whereas it's true we've made lots of progress in 12 months, I think we should not be complacent because we still have a lot of work to do to mobilize more Rwandans to join RNC. So mobilizing in Rwanda, mobilizing outside Rwanda is very much on our mind. Number two, we need to continue our work mobilizing the international community. We need to have a more robust and forceful diplomatic effort to try and explain to the world that Kagame is not only a danger to Rwandans, but the events in Rwanda or in the region have demonstrated it can easily become a very big danger to the region and to international security as well. So we need to explain a lot more that, especially for the Kagame's traditional allies, the Americans and the British, that it's not in their interests to to keep on, hanging around with somebody who has tainted hands.
Yes.
Like Kagame, that at some point he will embarrass them, and that at some point he will create conditions in which they will have to spend a lot of effort and money trying to overcome the kind of problems that he might create for Rwanda and for the region. But we need to go beyond Kagame's ally. And I think they have, if you see what the British were able to say about Kagame hunting down Rwandans in London some months ago.
Yeah.
And if you read from Ambassador Rice's remarks in Kigali, I believe that there is some kind of evolution on that front, but we need to double our efforts on the diplomatic front to get the international community really to begin to see Kagame truly as he is, instead of this other image that Kagame has built for himself and which you've in the past helped to propagate, so that people begin to look at him as truly he is. So there is a diplomatic effort that we need to intensify. Number 3, we need to try and really begin to build the internal processes, the internal structures of the RNC itself, because in these last 12 months, that was not a priority. The priority was to get to the people and explain who we are, build a bit of trust, get people into the organization. But now that we have members, we need to organize them internally so that RNC begins to model the transparent and accountable political organization that will demonstrate that in Rwanda in future, and that will become exemplary in the future, because Rwanda has always suffered because political organizations that have been in power in Rwanda have tended to not to have internal democracy. So how could they champion democracy outside themselves?
Sure.
So we need to build the RNC as an effective and efficient, transparent and accountable organization that has internal democracy, so that we can begin to model and exemplify it right now and even in the future when we are operating in Rwanda. So that's a very big challenge, but I think it's an important challenge to build that kind of organization that is also a rebel organization, because we're a rebel organization. We're in the business of the struggle. And so we are not a formal, legally accepted organization anywhere, except in name. And so, to a certain extent, there are characteristics that we shall continue to have that we share with other rebel movements or national peaceful democratic movements. That's what we are. So that's, we need to spend a lot of effort trying to build that. But we also need to figure out how to generate the kind of resources that should allow us to function, because and I think that goes with the people, because once people support something like that, getting resources always for a movement like this one has always been a challenge.
Yes.
Because you want to safeguard your independence, and so you want to make sure that the resources that you use for your purposes do not come from sources necessarily that might compromise your independence.
Certainly.
That has always been a challenge for organizations, especially at this phase of the struggle. And so, but we've been able to operate for 12 months. It has been the sacrifice of the Rwandan people that has allowed us to do this kind of work. I believe they will continue to, we shall continue to demand these types of sacrifices. And people will continue to give this sacrifice to make sure that we are able to operate. And lastly, we need to continue building a solid platform, a solid front on which we can begin to talk to each other as opposition organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because that's very important. As long as the opposition is fragmented, Kagame loves it. And
Yes.
a dictator would love it.
Sure.
And Kagame spends lots of resources, trying to buy this faction, trying to do this, rewarding, opposition leaders with positions in Rwanda.
Yes.
And so part of the effect of the impact of RNC's work has been really, Kagame is has felt so much threatened that even for those leaders in the opposition previously could not talk to, he's now beseeching them, literally kneeling before them and luring them to come back into the country. And so I think that while that is happening, the truth of the matter is that we need to continue to consolidate the opposition, talking to each other, bringing in civil society, bringing in all sorts of organizations that are at least opposed to the regime, and figuring out how we can present a consolidated and strong and effective front against the Kagame regime. So that in itself is a big task, and we shall continue to do that. So those are some of the few challenges looking ahead.
Okay. Has Kagame tried to infiltrate the RNC from your experience so far?
I'm not really aware of specific examples of where he has tried to do that, but we always operate from the point of view that he actually tries to do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we've seen that in your meetings.
I know the leaders within RNC have been approached many times by Kagame's people. Previously, I know of a case of one of our leaders who was here in the United States, who was lured by Kagame and decided to go back into Kagame's camp. Others have told us, they tell us daily how they are approached by Kagame's intelligence, trying to lure them back into the fold. So this is how Kagame operates. He thinks he can always buy his way into these things, and where he cannot buy his way in, he will simply use violence to kill people, use intimidation. So yes, Kagame daily tries to infiltrate the RNC, but RNC, for people who've decided to join RNC, they are normally very committed people. And I think he's found that even when we're still an organization in its infancy, he's seen that RNC is quite strong. Is building a very strong foundation, and to be very difficult for him to be successful. But even in the case, because in these struggles, all these things happen. Once in a while, there are people who become weak, and may decide to abandon the organization. What matters is that you created a strong organization that when that happens, it does not compromise the organization. And number two, you make sure that when people like those ones are leaving, there are also others who are coming into the organization. And the organization is strong enough to ensure continuity, that work has to be done. It even happened with the RPF. We lost the charismatic leader, General Fred Rwigema, at the very beginning of the struggle. And that did not prevent the organization from marching forward.
Yeah. Okay. My last question. I am shocked at the different RNC boards on Facebook and the amount of members there are. Did you anticipate this social media reaction to the RNC when you started it, or has this taken you by surprise?
To be honest, it has taken me by surprise. It is a pleasant surprise, though.
Yes.
It's a pleasant surprise, and it has also now very much in our mind has also proved one point that we are now in a new age, and that as you think about transformation in one society, the global trends have really come to be very local, and there's no country that is saved from the impact of these global trends, especially the impact of social media. And so it occurs to me, and most of the people who are on Facebook, even my friends, I believe most of them are young people.
Yeah,
and
true.
So if we have to reach the young generation, I think an organization like ours has to make sure that we figure out how to use social media towards this, creating general awareness, organizing and mobilizing the Rwandan people. So, that has been a pleasant surprise for me.
And obviously the RNC is holding the message that the people want to hear, because they're, as you know, I published for other opposition groups to Rwanda, and they do not have nearly the reaction or the desire to join the movement that the RNC has.
No, and then precisely that's the point I was trying to make. I think ours was bound to be a very difficult message.
Yes.
It is a very difficult message. Even for us who've been at the forefront of this message, it requires each one of us individuals also to do a lot of soul searching and take positions which only a couple of months and years ago you could never even have contemplated. So it's a very difficult message. But the good thing, it's a message of the time. And because it speaks to the Rwandan condition, to each one of us individually, as families, as a communities, as as a nation, I think it's been it's a message that has that is striking at the heart of the condition of Rwandans, and that kind of passion, you've seen it on Facebook.
Oh,
you
my
just
gosh.
post something and you see how much passion comes out. And of course, this passion sometimes is from the other side. Those who hate RNC hate it with passion.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and those who hate me, they do hate me with passion.
Yes.
But I don't spend time in that.
I know.
I want to spend a lot of time figuring out how people really can begin to tell truth to each other, to cultivate a culture of humility and tolerance.
Yes.
And in the hope that by doing that, we can attract also the element of forgiveness and forgiving. And in that process, hopefully, we can, construct a reconciliation and healing on a more durable basis. That's what really interests me. As I told you, I never go to search the daily insults that Kagame heaps on me or heaps on RNC, because that does not create value for me, and I want to not to put a lot of garbage into my head.
Good. Yes, I know. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to say in closing?
No, in closing, I would say that I'm really very optimistic about the future. I know it's very difficult, but great things have always, very often emerged out of very, very difficult situations. And I think if there is one thing that I'm truly on behalf of my colleagues in the RNC, the founders and the new members, the family is becoming large and large day by day. If there is one thing that I'm really happy about, it is that our message and our work has really helped people to overcome fear. And number two, and most important, it has created hope.
Yes.
And it's on the basis of overcoming fear and hope for a shared future that is truly the basis of true reconciliation and healing in this country. And if we can continue to consolidate this and build the momentum, at some point, overcoming fear and this hope that RNC has created will be translated into building a society in which we can all belong. And I'm very optimistic about that.
Great.
Yeah.
I love that you always give me a title for the article when you talk.
Thank you.
All right.
All right,
Thank you, Theo. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much.
Okay.